Go ahead and. All right, welcome. My name is Anne Marie McCaskill Davis, and I am the Cultural Funding Specialist Senior with the City of Austin's Cultural Arts Division. Today is the Thrive Elevate Review Panel number 4 for organizations. Today is September 4th, 2024. We have with us today Priscilla Hale, who is our equity facilitator. Um, I will be here supporting and referencing the program guidelines for Thrive and Elevate and providing any support there. We have our panelists here who've already scored the applications and provided written comments. For all applications, all of their scores are tentative and they have the opportunity to make revisions as the discussion goes through today. They will not be announcing any numeric scores during this session, just providing comments and feedback for areas of future improvement. Each application will be provided a 10-minute maximum, and I will let panelists know as we approach that maximum. We'll start the recording and timer if there are any technical issues that arise, and then we'll start them back up once those are resolved. We've asked panelists not to repeat what panelists have already said, so we're not requiring every panelist to make a comment, only if they have additional comments that they would like to add that have not already been said. Panelists are not scoring on a consensus, so they may have divergent ideas and thoughts about applications. They will be providing overall application comments that are in line with the review criteria set out in the scoring rubric, which has been available on the Elevate and Thrive website since the programs launched. They should not be basing their scores on information that is not within the scoring rubric. Things like financial need or geographic area are not considerations in these programs. We've also instructed panelists to look beyond grantsmanship. So if the information is within the application, they are invited to count that information. They also are allowed to include their own firsthand experience of an applicant, as well as if they reviewed the website of the applicant, they're allowed to use that information as well. If a panelist has a conflict of interest today, they will recuse themselves by turning off their video and their microphone for that review. And we will invite them to come back and join the rest of the discussion after that application has been, scores have been finalized by the other panelists. What else? That's the basic overview of what panelists have been instructed to do for today. We're going to go ahead and get started with our first application up for review. Today it is AIGA Austin. One more thing I want to mention is that we do have primary and secondary reviewers assigned to each application. A primary and secondary are just a way to facilitate conversation. Those assignments are there to ensure that there is a person who can introduce the application, as well as provide the first round of comments, and another person who is prepared to provide a secondary round of comments. It does not mean that they are the only two people who reviewed the application. All panelists have reviewed the applications that are being presented and discussed today. All right, so now that we've gone over all of that, Ashley will be the primary for AIGA Austin, and Reggie will be the secondary. So let me get the timer ready to roll. Okay, so I have 10 minutes on the clock. Ashley, whenever you're ready to begin, I will start the timer once you begin speaking.
Okay. AIGA Austin is a professional association for design. They are looking for $150,000 to establish a central design studio to be accessible for all, um, including their program calendar with a variety of events, board meetings, workshops, community gathering, and creating a vibrant atmosphere for creative exchange. One of the things that I noticed with AIGAs application is that when they were speaking about their key constituents, they said that they have strong relationships with the communities within Austin that align with our expertise, programming, and professional acumen. That's a very general statement that doesn't really speak towards communities that are facing erasure or marginalized communities or communities of intersectionality. So it's not really the answer wasn't very intentional about who their key constituents were. So if they gave more thought towards who the specific communities are that they're impacting, that would have strengthened that portion. Um, Also noticing that in their application, when it came to decision making power or just the history of the organization, once again, a lot of it was very broad. They gave a statement about being giving big thinkers, problem solvers, and young dreamers a place to execute ideas that matter to communities. Once again, asking the question, who are said communities that you're talking about? Um, which would help just to give more support behind why they need a central design studio and also who is this going to be accessible for. Um, a couple other things noticing in their application, they did have intentional accessibility measures that they included. Uh, the WCAG standards, the mobility impaired seating, using ramps, promoting works from artists with disabilities. So I thought all of that was very positive. Their marketing strategies tended to use basic or standard methods of marketing, um, except for outreach to non-English speakers. There weren't a lot of specific measures that they were going to implement, so it didn't seem like a target area per se. Um, Same with the language accessibility. It just seemed to be something to think about, not something that they were intentionally trying to include in their proposal. Um, and as in terms of like their steps towards being a cultural institution, they do seem to have overall goals that they want to reach through the next 2 years if they were to receive this funding opportunity. They want to increase their partnerships. They want to increase the various channels that they use for marketing and outlets. They want to engage with professional services, that type stuff. But there weren't very once again, specific steps for them to take in order to achieve these goals. A lot of them seem very general, overarching. So, in conclusion, AIGA's application was clear about what they wanted to do in terms of building this design studio. It just wasn't clear who it was for, what the goal would be for the kind of impact or long-term impact that they're looking for, and also giving specific measures and specific steps that they would take in order to make this a benefit for specific communities wasn't given. So it was a little hard to understand why this design studio was needed. And that is it.
Thanks, Ashley. Um, I thought it was a very valuable grant application. However, I wasn't able to see how it was rooted in serving the communities that are at immediate risk of cultural erasement and displacement. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more intersectionality and how that was considered to be a key component. I can see that the board does support intersectionality, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that amongst the leadership and how the lived experience of the key constituents were shown through that. I felt like the artistic mission and vision was not really rooted in serving the communities that are at immediate risk of cultural erasement.
Thank you, Ashley and Reggie. At this time, I'd like to invite any other panelists to add any additional comments. It doesn't seem that anybody else has anything, so Emily.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, panelists, you may finalize your scores. And if you'll give me a thumbs up once you're ready, and feel free to take as much time as you need.
Are we going back in to finalize them or what are we doing?
Yep, so you would go back into submittable and make any updates to scores that you'd like.
Oh, okay.
And is everyone all set? Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the next application. Austin Visual Arts Association, AVAA. Ashley is the primary and Reggie is the secondary. Let me set up the timer. Okay, Ashley, I'll begin the timer as soon as you begin speaking.
You're muted, Ashley.
Sorry. Austin Visual Arts Association is seeking $150,000 to do a variety of activities that focus on innovative and equitable ways to curate gallery exhibits, host their year-round figurative arts program, provide free summer arts workshops to disadvantaged minority youth, and provide affordable workspace, studio, and gallery space to artists. They are a nonprofit organization made up of working artists and supporters, and they are one of the oldest contemporary arts organizations in Austin, with the mission to encourage the knowledge, appreciation, and practice of contemporary visual art in Austin. A few things that I noticed about throughout their application is that their key constituents, which they say we evaluate and address the ever-changing needs of our key constituents who are often marginalized and emerging artists, like BIPOC artists, veterans, LGBTQIA+, economically disadvantaged youth, etc. That these key constituents seem to be more by default rather than by intentionality. So yes, they are focusing on communities that face discrimination and that might be at risk for immediate erasure, but these constituents don't seem to be instrumental to the foundation or the mission of the organization, just in terms of how they provided their answers. When it comes to their leadership, the leadership is in charge of programming and strategy, but I could not find a lot of evidence just based in the information they gave. I couldn't find a lot of evidence to say that the majority had lived experiences, and I think part of that is also because the key constituents that they say they're for are not central to their ideas. They are more, like I said, by default. Their activities, however, that they propose do seem to be able to meet the needs of these communities that they are speaking about. Their intersectionality is, once again, more of a byproduct of the activities and not necessarily central to bringing contemporary art to the focus. When it comes to accessibility, I thought it was a good idea that one of their resident artists serves as an advisor for best practices in accessibility measures. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through just to see what else there was that I put. Oh, and also when it comes to their goals towards the end, the narrative speaks more to what the organization is already doing and what they offer rather than their future goals that they want to implement and achieve. The focus of the narrative is more about having a permanent space rather than having an impact for the people who might be using said permanent space. And that is all.
Thanks, Ashley. Just in addition to that, I thought that the goal to make Austin Arts leading destination worldwide is fantastic. I think there's been some really great steps that have been taken in consideration to accessibility in the application. You have the applicant has addressed some ever-changing needs of the key constituencies, but again, I don't think that was core to the operations of the not-for-profit. Some great artists are in the leadership team, but I didn't see a lot of diversity or representation of key constituencies within the leadership team. Some things that could be improved maybe are it was a very clear marketing plan. However, I think there was a gap around attracting tourists and supporting economic development. And the TikTok and influencer component was a great addition. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley and Reggie. This time I'd like to invite other panelists if there's any additional comments that you'd like to make.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, panelists, you may finalize your scores.
Are y'all able to pull up the submittable on your computers? I mean, how are y'all doing? How are we doing the scoring here?
Yes, so folks should be able to log into Submittable and make adjustments to their assigned scores. If you'd like, we can pause for just a minute so that you can get logged in if you're not logged into Submittable just yet. And Elaine, just let us know when you're ready or if you have more questions.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. All right, let's move on to the next application. Lanaya Drum and Dance. Jake is the primary. Ashley is the secondary. Let's see. Let me restart the timer. Okay, Jake, whenever you are ready, you may begin. I'll start the timer when you begin speaking.
Thank you. So I am going to quote from the application. Lanaya Drum and Dance is a West African drum and dance ensemble. They're formed in 2000 and they are a Black-led nonprofit. They have a successful history and robust ability to have a calendar of events that is pretty impressive. I found it largely impressive. Their programming history includes performance pieces by African artists from Guinea, Mali, and Cote d'Ivoire. This is from their application, but I thought it was impressive. They have programs about lived cultural experience that inform, educate, and energize, and demystify African culture and break stereotypes. They are requesting funding for 2 years worth of programming, including hiring a dedicated marketing staffer, developing new programming, and redeveloping and launching an updated website. And then for their second year, they want to secure 2 to 5 new funding opportunities, get a full-time staff with benefits, and hire a dedicated artistic director. So, but in addition to that, increase their programming. So all in all, I thought that the programming that they are planning and suggesting to put on is pretty robust. And I do think there is a track record that demonstrates loyalty to their goals. I do think that some of the suggestions for goals around what future programming would be might be a little general. And so for improvement, I wonder if the improvement that could be made is in the budgeting category, really specifically suggesting ways that the community at large, which I will just define as the audience that they're interacting with is not only considered in this programming, but is being given as much planning into what that programming is, which will be presented to an audience as the organizational structure that they are hoping to build out. But all in all, I found it to be largely impressive.
Thanks, Jake. I agree with a lot of what you said. I thought their application was well organized, very detailed, and very easy to read. Just in the way that their narratives were written, they were able to speak to each individual point for each question so that the reviewer was able to understand what they were trying to say. I really appreciated that ASL interpretation was a main priority for them. You can see that also in their budget. They have student packets that are translated into Spanish, and they are looking to find interpreters for French as well. Just going along the lines of what Jake said about the activities themselves being a little general, it would just be interesting to know the percentage of students that they serve that are of Latino origin and also that are of French speaking backgrounds, just to see the percentage and the makeup of their students, their audience. I do believe that they have really strong goals and really achievable measures around their hiring and their marketing efforts over the next 2 years. Just double checking. Overall, is just a very clear application in terms of what they would like to do, who's going to be leading that, why it is important and central to the organization, why it's central and important to their key constituents, who they name very blatantly. So to Black, African, African American, and Brown communities. Yeah, and that's
Jake and Ashley, this time I'd like to invite other panelists if there are additional comments that you have to add.
I can, yeah. I think like I reckon with both what Ashley and Jake said. Just one thing that I wanted to highlight was that this is a very strong application, very clear implementation plan, but it would have been useful to see marketing efforts which are focused for the audiences and groups as defined by City of Boston. For example, how will they reach out to non-English speakers or how will they reach out to tourists? So if the response could have detailed out that in more clarity, that would have been helpful. That was the only bit that I found that could be improved or strengthened. Otherwise, like the other two reviewers said, it was a strong application.
Okay, seeing no additional comments, panelists, please finalize your scores. And is everyone good to go? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next application,
Was
Taranada.
that a finger up? Wait, hold on. Ashley,
Oh.
were you good to go or was that a finger? Like, wait a minute.
It was a finger, but now it's a thumb.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I was like, wait, I thought that was a finger, not a thumb.
All right. Moving on to Taranada. Um, Anshika will be the primary and Jake is the secondary. Um, I have to reset the timer. So Anshika, whenever you begin speaking, I will start the timer.
Sure. So this is Taranada, and they're requesting $150,000 to present the Hamaru Fest, which is an all-day free interactive community event with workshops, performances, and speeches on day one, which is followed by a concert featuring prominent Roma musician on day two. They will also present the documentary Romani Lone Star during the festival. Just wanted to talk about a little bit context on the Hamaru Fest. Hamaru Fest celebrates the beauty of the Romani Gypsy, India, Texas music and culture. They unite Romani and the Indian people and cultures through arts, creating workshops, concerts, and educational program. And they basically demystify the origins of the Romani people and also give more information about the culture. Uh, Coming to specific, what I liked about the application was that the unique focus on portraying the Roma migration from India provides a very valuable educational and cultural service to the community in Austin. And second is that I noticed they have letters of support from professor who teaches at the University of Texas and also is a speaker at the festival. So I feel like that made the application stand out and strong for me. In terms of key constituencies and creative mission, I gave the applicant a high score because they've very clearly articulated who the key constituents are, the artists, employees, and volunteers of the Roma, Asian Indian diaspora, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, LGBTQIA+, Middle East, and people with disability. They've also operationalized equity within their practice. They speak about how they compensate musicians from different backgrounds, basis their skills level. I also gave them a high score in history of service because they've demonstrated a strong commitment to meeting the needs of the key constituencies. To be specific, they've provided jobs and performance opportunities for over 100 plus artists. They also offer summer camps to about 2,000 plus disadvantaged families. And Taranada has organized numerous concerts and festivals attracting 14,000 plus attendees, positioning Austin as a leading hub for Roma cultural activities. I gave them a high score in cultural leadership because their CEO, Oliver Rajmani, is a key figure in the Roman Indian identity and also has worked in the UN Romani Congress. And like I was stating before, they also have a pool of professors who teach Romani culture in the University of Texas. So they have a good representation of the key constituents and really understand the culture. The cultural activities that they've proposed is, I talked about that earlier, but I gave them a high score here because they've provided a very clear implementation plan. The what, where, and when details are very clearly given. And there's also clear outcome statements which says that 100 artists will get paid opportunities and 7,000 plus attendees will witness these festivals. I gave them a medium score in intersectionality and inclusion because they've not really given much information on how the intersection identities of these Romanian people are identified and addressed through the festival. I think it would have been useful to have more narrative and more information there. Um, Apart from that, there's high score in most in accessibility requirements because an implementation plan is given, names of trained professionals is given. Similarly, for non-speaking communities, the only place where I gave a low score was marketing. They do mention and outline that they will use different marketing platforms, but they have not given how will they reach out to specific target groups as defined by the City of Austin in the question itself. Um, Overall, the proposal is strong, has a clear set of proposed activities they wish to do with the grant funding. They have appropriate accessibility and language support. Budget reflects the proposal. Two areas where the proposal can be strengthened for future purposes is the intersectionality section, and the other is specific marketing. Yeah.
Great. I think I'm the second. I agree completely with pretty much everything Anshika said. One thing that I would also like to highlight, I found that the budget, that is usually what I look to in these applications, was really specific. It had an excellent understanding of what the actual programming needs would be. I found that to be kind of that there was a great amount of attention to detail placed into what they were requesting for each category. I also found that the specifics beyond just the live event, but some of the other programs, they seem to be very diverse, but they really were connected and rooted in the specific mission of the organization, which I also found to be exemplary.
Thank you all. At this time, I'd like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, panelists may finalize their scores. All right, is everyone good to go? Okay, great. So let's move on to the next application, All Rhythms Youth Ensemble with Sofrito Isu Melau. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Next, the primary is Elaine and the secondary is Anshika. Elaine, let's see, I have the timer reset. Timer is all set to go whenever you begin speaking. I'll begin the timer.
Okay, this all rhythms and youth ensemble, they are asking for both the Thrive and the Elevate grant. I see that one thing they did, they went through all the questionnaires and they answered everything fully. They went through great detail as to what their program is about, what they plan to do with each in each section. The key constituents were they were looking at to do the Hispanic, Latino, African American communities with 100% of our current youth ensemble. They are going through the Crisis Rehab Center for the Blind and Visual Impaired. So they're including all the disabled people also involved in this. And I like the fact that they're doing the African, Latino, Caribbean cultures. I think that's great for Austin. They have a history of, with the school with T.A. Brown for 2012. So they've been active in the community for a while, and they also been dealing with the schools that deal with the most underserved communities in Austin, which like Go Valley is one of the schools that I know that has been underserved in our community. And they went through in detail about their board and the cultural activities. The history was good. The accessibility, they talked about, like I said, including people with disabilities, the blind, the disabled. So I think that was good. They need to include everybody in the events. So I thought overall, they went through each step of the application very well. They went into detail of what they're going to do and who they're going to serve. So I gave them a high score.
Yes, so I find that the proposed activities were very well detailed out. The who, where, and when were given. For example, they want to do three things: two concerts with the Afro-Cuban band, weekly rehearsals with teaching artists, and monthly private lessons. And third is the recording session to build a recorded repertoire. So the activities very clearly laid out. In terms of my scoring for key constituencies, they cover Hispanic, Latino, African American communities, all are priority key constituencies. One thing that I really like is that they provide instruments, lessons, rehearsals, and performance opportunities to students from communities with any and all dispositions. And they also help these people hone their abilities such as fine motor skills, problem skills, analytical skills, and social emotional skills, which we know that are becoming increasingly important even as we go into the future labor market and workforce issues. I gave them a high on cultural leadership, very well representative board and management with lived experience. I scored high on cultural activities. As I stated, that the activities are laid out, but the expected outcomes are also very well articulated. I feel that they have highlighted that it just doesn't also, it highlights the rich culture of the Caribbean, specifically the Afro-Caribbean influences, but it also says how it helps students with instrument and educational supplies and also helps them develop an interest that further leads to them, some of them going to colleges and enrolling in bands and music production courses. So it sort of builds a longevity and a career path too for people who come and enroll in these programs. The only feedback here is that the proposal does not really clearly mention the intersectional identities of the communities. It can be inferred from the website and from the other responses, but it would have been useful if they had really identified what are these intersectional cutting identities of the key constituencies and how they wish to address that through their programming. Overall, I'm giving them a medium high score because it's a strong proposal with one or two areas of improvement that I mentioned.
You all like to invite other panelists to come in here?
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, panelists may finalize their score. Okay, is everyone all set? All right, we'll move on to the next application. Let's see. Austin Jewish Film Festival. Reggie will be the primary and Elaine is the secondary. I am ready with the timer. So Reggie, whenever you're ready to begin, when you begin speaking, I'll start the timer.
Thank you. The Austin Jewish Arts Festival is requesting $150,000 to show 22 films and shorts for the annual festival at the Dell Jewish Community Campus to entertain and inform citywide audiences in November 2024. In addition, throughout the year, the monthly AJFF 365 will show 12 films. These films have question and answer presentations, panel discussions, and target a range of Jewish culture. Their key mission is to seek and promote cultural understanding and tolerance among the greater Austin community, to combat hate, encourage artistic development, and entertain a diverse audience through medium of Jewish films. The proposals centered around, I believe, around people from communities that are at immediate risk of cultural erasure and displacement within Austin, as quoted from the grant, that the key constituencies are Jewish and Israeli communities in Central Texas, which represent less than 1% of the area population. Because the Austin Jewish population is so small, there are very few arts and cultural programs that target the audience and has a deep and far-reaching history of the city and across the state of Texas. The AJFF is the largest all-volunteer Jewish film festival in the US. The marketing plan was very good. It would be great to see some measurable goals into the marketing plan. There is some consideration and some films being shown across a diverse range of different intersectionalities across Austin and the community. The accessibility section was brilliant. The venue has accessibility. The applicants providing transport to the venue. There is assisted listening devices, English subtitles, reduced cost ticketing to create extra accessibility for those that are not able to afford it. The community also partners with a transport company to provide transport for seniors. Would have been good to see some more information around how your long history of serving the key constituents impacted into leadership roles, jobs, career development, networking, etc. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, they did a good job in filling out the application. They went through each step in great detail. They pinpoint the constituents who they are targeting, which is the Jewish community. They outlined the goals of showing the films and reaching out to different communities to teach their history, so there can be more tolerance to the Jewish community. And they went into good detail about their budgeting and about the history of their teaching and the activities they have done in the Austin community. And their films are going to be presented from around the world with many languages. So therefore, everybody can understand what the films and the culture is all about. So I gave them a high score.
Thank you both. At this time, I'd like to invite other panelists to any additional comments that you may have.
I wanted to point out in their intersectionality and is it that section? Sorry. Oh, and the language accessibility. So their intersectionality section. Just wanted to note that the intersectionality component seems to come from the content of the films that they are presenting, not necessarily within the intentionality behind the planning of the program or of the leadership. However, I do see in their goals for the next 2 years that they do want to deepen relationships with other minority communities. And it seems to be an emphasis on deepening relationship with the Black community. So I think that that would help with the intersectionality portion. And also, I just wanted to commend them for taking a step for language accessibility about recording English subtitles to put over foreign films that don't already have subtitles provided to them. I just think that taking that initiative is really great.
Yeah, any other folks have anything to add?
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, please go ahead and finalize your scores. All right. This brings us to our first break in the day. So we'll be taking a 15-minute break. We'll be back at us, not 6:02, at 11:02. So panelists are going to be turning off their cameras and silencing their microphones, and we'll be back to get started on the next group of applications at 11:02. Thank you. I mean, not the timer, the recording. Yes, thank you. All right, we're back. We're going to begin with the next application, Groundwork Music Project. I'm going to go ahead and set my timer. All right, ready to go. Ashley is the primary and Reggie is the secondary. Ashley, whenever you begin speaking, I will start the timer.
Okay, so Groundwork Music Project is an organization whose mission is to provide free and low-cost music lessons to young children regardless of means. They are seeking $150,000 to provide 27 public events that will serve to provide inclusive, multicultural enrichment for both audience and participating young music learners. They identified their key constituents as children of low socioeconomic status, including refugee families and communities of color, which is very specific, especially working with refugee families. They, excuse me, they noted their activities as having equity, which is seen throughout choosing the location of their venues, the choices of languages that they use for their performances, and working with international partners and having international exchanges. One area that I felt could have had a little bit more evidence was within the leadership section. The statistics and identities of key decision makers in leadership were missing from the narrative, so it didn't present a direct connection to the communities that they mentioned or showing that those in decision making positions had lived experiences with those communities. So that area could have gotten a little bit more evidence to support their claims. In terms of intersectionality, it's listed throughout the narrative. The communities that they work with, they seem to demonstrate thoughtful consideration for their presence and their needs. They mentioned that some of their board members have lived experiences that might relate to the intersectionality and inclusion of their key constituents, but it would have been nice to have more evidence to support that, and also more evidence to show how the voices of their key constituents are involved from the start of their projects and their proposals. So they're not just on the receiving end, they're on the creation end as well. They do have a partnership with the Texas School for the Blind, in which they do a lot of accessibility accommodations for them. Their marketing plan to have partnership with Do 512 is to help bring in new audiences. But other than that, there isn't much that speaks about the tourism or the creative economy industry. Also, in their budget, I thought their budget was well organized and had a good breakdown, except it was missing production fees, which I thought was interesting because some of their listed activities seem that they would need to have more than just like class fees, because they are like performance oriented. So just wondering where that line item is. And in terms of their organizational capacity, it does state that they want to expand that over the next 2 years. They want to return to a pre-pandemic level of residencies and programming, and they want to expand their reach beyond younger students and reach into older students as well. So in general, I thought that they had a well organized and clear application, but they could have used more evidence about lived experiences and intersectionality, especially among those in leadership. And that's all.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Just in addition to all those great comments, I agree with everything. The only few things I had to add were the budget. Well, I guess similar situation. I couldn't see production, and otherwise, it was great to see a lot of the money going towards the artists. The goal of growth, to reach pre-pandemic numbers is fantastic. However, I think it would have been really great to see some proof of how this might be done and maintained. But overall, I thought it was a really great application and serving a wonderful purpose. Thank you.
Thank you both.
But real quickly, before just a clarifying thing. So just one thing to note that on the budget form, when the scoring criteria refers to production expenses, it doesn't necessarily have to specifically speak to production fees. It can be any additional production expenses, including venue rental, supplies, materials, anything above and beyond marketing, accessibility services, payments to artists. So just a quick update there.
Thank you, Anne Marie. I think we often think of production as using that semantics, right? So just want to broaden. Thank you for catching that. Would like to ask other panelists if there are any additional comments that you would like to add.
A few comments here. In terms of the proposed activities, I think, yes, they've very clearly mentioned what activities they wish to do. But in terms of specificities related to these 27 public events and monthly concert, information on what will be the location, the batch size, the scale of events, any specificity related to these events would have been useful to understand what will encompass these public events. That was one thing that I found would have been useful. Second was that in terms of the marketing strategy, and I think this has been with some of the applicants that they give a very elaborate marketing strategy, it's very comprehensive, but they have missed to address the specific audiences as is clearly mentioned in the question. So I think for future purposes, it'll be very useful to really look at the question and see, okay, if I have to cater my marketing strategy to these four audiences, these are my specific efforts. This just makes answering for reviewers easy, as well as doesn't leave a scope for missing any information. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. That's very great feedback for folks. Any additional comments from panelists?
Okay, seeing that are no additional comments, you may finalize your scores and prepare to move on to the next application. I'll give everyone just a minute to finalize those scores. Okay, everyone good to go? We need more time. Okay, great. Next, we will be reviewing Eastside Kings Festival. Ashley is the primary. Anshika is the secondary. The timer is all set to go. So Ashley, whenever you're ready, you may begin, and I'll start the timer when you begin speaking.
Okay. Eastside Kings Festival. So the Eastside Kings Foundation is a mission rooted in preserving and promoting the the cultural heritage of Black African American blues, jazz, and gospel artists. Their initiative focuses on largely unknown Black musicians and aims to give them opportunities to showcase the historical significance and artistic contributions of their music and live performances in Austin and around the world. They are seeking $150,000 for their Eastside Kings Festival, which will be in October of 2025. It is the 13th annual festival, and they are also wanting to put on another concert series, the first annual Eastside Kings Rosewood concert series, which would be in March, April, and May of 2025. I thought this was a very strong application. It was very easy and clear to read. The way that the narratives were written spoke to each bullet point that was needed to give a full answer to each section. They were very clear about their key constituents, especially in revitalizing the Black jazz culture, and to reinvest in East Austin to stop, quote, Black flight. I thought that was a very intentional mission, and also it shows their dedication to helping the economy within Austin and revitalizing the creative economy in that section with Black jazz. They also have an international component to their work. They do European and Japanese tours. They have a holistic approach to serving Black blues musicians in terms of their support that they need for just performances, as well as training, as well as teaching, as well as touring. They were very clear in terms of their leadership and those who make decisions about who is representing them and what kind of dedication they have to their key constituents, but also including other voices in the conversation. Both festivals are very poignant to their mission. One of them is a continuous thing that they've been doing, which will be 13 years. And then I think branching out and doing this first annual concert series, the Rosewood concert series, which is at a different location, helps to bring in more new audiences, helps to revitalize a new section of Austin, and helps to spread their mission even further. In terms of accessibility, they have transportation services to the festival, and I love the fact that they have scooters being provided at the festival. So not only can you get there, you can get around as well. So I feel like that just goes beyond using ADA compliant venues. They have a wide range of translation services through professional entities that they are using. So they have professional certified translators on hand for German, French, Spanish, and Japanese. And I think they take into consideration the fact that they do European and Japanese tours in order to help make those decisions. Their marketing is an extensive plan, and parts of it are I noticed are geared specifically towards tourist and hospitality industries. Like they have print ads in United Airlines magazine. They are partnering with Visit Austin for ticket giveaways. So it just goes beyond the normal community boards and brochures that you can leave. Yeah, in general, it is a very clear breakdown of what they want to do over the next 2 years. They want to increase their hiring, increase their program development, and increase their marketing strategies, also develop new partnerships. It's just very clear in terms of what it is they want to do and how their program will revitalize East Austin and the Black blues landscape. So very strong. That's it.
Yes, I fully support what Ashley is saying. I think it's in the proposals that I reviewed, one of the best ones in terms of clarity of information, in terms of exactly giving what information is required. And that being said, even the quality of the work that they're proposing to do sounds very valuable. So it's a very well written, very well in terms of all the supports that is required, in terms of what planning is required, very well and a strong proposal. Coming to specificities in terms of history, I think Eastside Kings Foundation has effectively met the needs of Black Blue artists, and they've given a range of opportunity creation, what opportunities they've created for the artists. And some of them include performance opportunities, recording opportunities, tours. They have assisted artists in securing and managing tours throughout the US and internationally, career development. So the foundation has also provided instrument procurement, repair, and financial support to artists in need. So very well, clearly documented what are the areas of opportunity creation in terms of jobs, in terms of networking, in terms of resources, procurement over the years that one has done for the Black Blues artists. So I've given a very high score in history of service. Similarly, in cultural leadership, they've established a decision-making structure that represents the key constituencies. The advisory panel is composed primarily of Black Austin-based blues musicians. This is ensuring that the perspectives and needs are very well represented in the decision-making process. In terms of cultural activities, I've given them a high score again because it's a very well detailed out plan with what, where, when, who details clearly provided. Desired outcomes have been explained in detail, but I picked up the desired outcomes from previous questions, which I've already spoken about. The festival centers multi-generational Black artists, which promotes inclusivity and equity in the music sense. So I really like that about the application, that it looks at a multi-generational approach. Overall, both events would, along with Eastside Kings Foundation mission of preserving Black blues music, they offer a platform for showcasing talent, fostering community, and promoting cultural heritage. They also center equity in their programming, which is making a significant contribution to making the music scene in Austin more equitable, more inclusive. Overall, I'm sure Ashley's already spoken about the other ones. Just overall comments would be that they have demonstrated a very strong commitment to preserving and promoting rich cultural heritage of Black music in Austin. Both the proposed program, which is the festival, as well as the concert series, align very closely with the goals of cultural funding programs of the city of Austin. Language and accessibility supports are very well planned. Overall, very, very strong proposal. Thank you.
Thank you both. Would like to invite other panelists. Do you have any additional comments to add? Elaine, do you have other comments? Oh, you came off mute. Yeah.
Do I have something to add?
Well, you came off mute, so I was wondering if you had something to add.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Seeing as there are no additional comments, please go ahead and finalize your scores. All right, if everyone's ready to roll on to the next application, we will be reviewing Hearts to Heal. Jake is the primary and Elaine is the secondary. The timer is ready to go. So Jake, whenever you're ready, I'll start the timer when you begin speaking.
Thank you. So Hearts to Heal is an organization I found to be very impressive in its heart and scope. And there are a lot of programs that they are proposing. They are dedicated to serving marginalized communities in Austin, quote, facing cultural erasure, particularly Black, Latino, multiracial, African, and Caribbean community members. Their mission is interesting. It integrates ancestral arts, and it is focused around specifically grief, loss, and mental health challenges. They say that these activities that they are proposing are really about helping individuals across these different communities process that grief, which I thought was interesting in the context of erasure, which is about what the application pertains to. What they're actually proposing to produce are movement workshops, photography, and photography exhibits, and storytelling workshops. And they really want to reach out to various audiences in Austin to be able to utilize those activities around those particular themes. I found that while it was a very thorough application, I found that there was some detail left to be desired, particularly on the programming side. It is a very specific, in the application, there are specific mentions and focuses on intersectionality in the makeup of the organization, but there was more that I wished that they had done to bridge the programs that they're intending to produce and how that actually connected to what the traditions that were the makeup of the board were actually connected to. So that being said, I wish that there was greater detail on how the activities connected to key constituencies, but I did ultimately find the activities highly intersectional, and so I graded it highly.
Okay, this is Hearts to Heal. I graded the applicant high because I really love the concept of what they're trying to do for the community, reaching out to different constituencies like the African Latino women, Army veterans. That's very important, reaching out to the veterans, and then the Black and Latinx communities. This healing and reaching out for mental health is very important because so many people don't want to ask for help and they can't afford that help. So if there's an opportunity for them to come in and see somebody look like them and they can easily talk, and if they can afford it, like the cap is at $15, I think that's really great for the community, and they're reaching out to everyone, uh, especially those who've been marginalized. And dealing with the erasure of your community is pretty much traumatizing. Um, and I like how they went through the details of their cultural workshops, the movement workshop, photo and exhibit, storytelling workshops, which is really great to actually tell a story so people can visualize it and see. Um, and the program to intersectionality, they're trying to be very diverse. They include the LGBT community, individuals with disabilities, and those with various social economic backgrounds that deal with grief and loss. And that's very important. Um, and they're reaching out to the disabled people, so everybody can be involved in all the different aspects of their workshops and all the programs they're having. Um, they open up to different languages, which is needed, English and Spanish and all others. They talked about their marketing, which is which is important: social media, website, newsletters, printouts, and radio. And their budget was in good detail, explaining how they're going to allocate the money, who will benefit, who gets paid, and all their marketing and venues. So I get them a high score.
Thank you both. Would like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments.
I just wanted to emphasize that they had a lot in their narratives, like in answering the questions and whatnot. But I do feel that there were some points that they missed tying everything back in together. So like they did a lot in section 1 about like alluding to or telling who their key constituents are, and like what their mission is. But then when you get to section 3 for their cultural leadership and decision making power, it's more of a generalized view of those who are in leadership have experience working in mental health services and have experience working with people that are part of the key constituents. And I felt that there was I felt there could have been more evidence about who those people were. So there were breakdowns of who's in their leadership, by giving some statistics or some description, and also tying back to the ancestral practices that they named in section 1, especially when it came to the intersectionality portion. I feel like there was a missed opportunity of bringing in what those ancestral practices are, from what ancestry and heritage they're talking about, and making that more of an intentional focus of their activities. So just a little bit more focus on that, I think, would have strengthened the application a little bit.
That's good. Any other additional comments?
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, please finalize your scores. Okay, if everyone is ready to go, we'll move on to the next application. Raisin in the Sun. Anchika is the primary and Jake is the secondary. I'm all set with the timer, so Anchika, whenever you're ready to begin, I'll start the timer when you begin speaking.
This is Raisin in the Sun, and they're requesting $150,000 to do three things. One is revive their high school mural artist program, which basically pairs students with professional artists in a mentorship format. Second is to do educational workshops for artists to improve their business management skills, taxes, how to do grant applications. And third is host a kids art camp during the spring and the summer, providing young artists with an opportunity to explore their creativity in a supportive environment. What I really like about this application is that the Raisin in the Sun's focus on environmental justice themes and community resilience addresses particularly critical local needs in this time of increasing environmental crisis. So that's about their theme. In terms of their key constituencies and creative mission, I gave them a high score because they've identified their key constituencies, which are diverse community members who are often underrepresented in the arts, including women, people of color, LGBTQIA+. I gave them a high score in history of service because they've very clearly mentioned some opportunities that they've created for their key constituencies, including Blue House Project, which is an artist residency project. And I looked up on their websites. It is an amazing, beautiful project, very popular as well. Some of the other examples of opportunity creation are murals in the Goval neighborhood, harvesting folk mural at the Houston Tillotson University. And they also have provided economic opportunities to artists and instilled a sense of community in the neighborhoods, bringing art closer to the public. So, in terms of meeting the needs of the constituencies, I gave them a high score. In terms of cultural leadership, their board, senior leadership, and management is very representative of who they serve. Along with this, they also use a participatory approach in designing their initiatives, where the artist gets an opportunity to express themselves and bring their art into life while also fostering strong community relationships. In terms of cultural activities, we know that they want to do three things very clearly mentioned. But I gave them a medium high score here because the activities proposed are mentioned, but where is the location, the timelines, where and when information is missing, and it would have been useful to understand their execution plans in terms of just basic details of, okay, in the mural artist program, where do the mentors come from? How many artists will be supported? How many mentors will come part of the program? How many educational workshops and all of that? So a little bit of detail would have been useful there. And also clear outcome statement. The question states that you need to give a outcome statement. Inference can be made here, but it would have been useful from a impact perspective of what is the scale of the impact that they are envisaging. What I really liked in this section was that the content development is designed by the community at the center. So they have equity centered in their approach. So there was a mix in cultural activities, which is why I gave them a medium high score. Intersectionality is a key component of the proposal, so they definitely get a high score. In terms of both accessibility for individuals with disability and accessibility for non-English speaking communities, I gave them a medium high score. Specialized services are mentioned, but they are not mentioned in detail. And information on who will provide this support services, whether they'll be trained, whether they'll be personnel inside the organization, whether it's board or anything like that, that's not clearly mentioned, and would have liked that to be clearly given. There is no clear plan also. So they have given some expanded ADA access, but a clear plan is not given. Marketing, low score on marketing. They do deploy a variety of channels and mediums to reach out to audiences, but the response lacks information in terms of targeted efforts across the audiences defined by City of Austin. Budget, a medium score in the budget because of two things. One is that the estimated expenses related to specialized accessibility or language support services is zero, while they do mention these services in the narrative, it's not getting reflected in the budget. And the second is the budget also does not reflect cost of the other two proposed programs. So the mural artist program, the cost is there, but kids camp as well as the educational workshops, the cost is not clearly written in the narrative, explained in the narrative. In terms of cultural institutions, I've given them a medium low. They provide clear information on what they need to set up as a cultural institution, but the goals are not really measurable, which would have been useful to know. Overall remarks, program sounds promising with a focus on diverse artists who comes from marginalized communities. They use art as a vehicle to provide education, mentorship, and cultural preservation. But the feedback is that if they had provided more information on specialized accommodations, language support, how they wish to market their programs to specific audiences, details on programming, which is timelines, venue, could have made their proposal a stronger case. Also, the budget. So I would give them a score of medium to medium low. Thank you.
Thank you. I largely agree, although I did score it fairly high in the areas of intersectionality, and I do think that I had wished that this had more description in the application in the ways that it was written, in the ways that the information was presented. I do feel sometimes the way that the application was written got in the way for me, or made me ask questions a little bit too early of where things were to be mentioned. Ultimately, in the budgeting section is where I found the best description of the programming. And once that was explained for me, I thought it was quite thorough, but I had wanted there to be more specifics in how the programming and the funding would be supported, or how the programming would ultimately be supported by the funding. I did find that the track record of service gives me a lot of faith in the ability to kind of execute on the vagaries within this application. And I do know that, for example, they wanted to focus on staffing. That is something that is highly personal. And so, of course, that there is like room to plan for programming within that. However, I do think that I had wished there was a greater emphasis on how those goals in selecting those staff members would go further into programming in the future. That being said, I think that there are opportunities for this organization to take significant steps with the course of action that they're proposing. And I scored them highly. I thought they were positive and thorough in their application.
Thank you both. Would like to invite other panelists for any additional comments.
So I was a little, the application left me wanting something more. And maybe it's the details that Anshika and Jake had already spoken about in terms of what their activity actually is. Like in that narrative section, it seems very vague and generalized. And I would also just say that the key constituents are also kind of vague and generalized. When you say women, people of color, and musicians who are women, people of color, and LGBTQIA plus, there's a lot of people of color. There's a lot of LGBTQIA plus. There's a lot of different kind of musicians. So it just seems very broad, in my opinion. So I guess just emphasizing what Anshika and Jake already said about if they could just drill down into more specifics, not just in the activity, but also in specifically who is at the foundation of their programming.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Okay.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, please finalize your scores. All right, everyone's ready to go. Except we lost Jake's video. Jake, are you there?
It's like he's there, but no video.
Yeah.
I do seem to be having some connection issues, so I can hear everybody, but bear with me. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
I think just let us know, Jake, if you notice your video go off, but you're still there. If you could just verbalize it, then we'll.
I think it's likely for the next 4 minutes or so, my video might be off as I just try and adjust this connection.
Okay.
No, you're not one of them.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and pull up the next application, Saiva. Elaine is the primary and Anchika is the secondary. I have the timer, I believe, all set up.
Okay, Save mission is to promote a sense of well-being, belonging, and fulfillment for intergenerations, specifically older adults, through culture, arts, community engagement, education, partnership, building, and advocacy of civic involvement. Okay, those are the key constituents: the older adults, seniors, youth, intergenerational groups, general audience, community groups. The history is they have been around. I guess. Okay. That talks about Dr. Asante retirement from her successful 33-year career in physician in 1991 and moved to the U.S. to be with her family. Okay. As she grew older, her ability to reach out to others and do things independently diminished, along with a sense of connection with others. Okay, I think this is what inspired them to start this organization. And they cultural leadership. They have so many individuals in the creative field we are connected to and regularly to participate, teach, volunteer, and advocate for facilities in Suave. So they go into detail about their cultural leadership, naming different people in different fields and how they are part and connected with the organization and how they participate and help. The cultural activities, they have a series of programs: dance, singing class, Diwali at the Domain. I guess I said that right. I might didn't say. Cooking, Asian community tours and things. They acknowledging that South Asian community is not a monolithic group is extremely important to feel that is what Save different in Central Texas. Okay, so they explain all They have accessibility. They went through that, explaining how they're going to accommodate different people, part of their what's inclusive in their environment, people with disabilities. Then they went into to explain about the languages. They said they're going to have volunteers to help with any language and non-English speakers. And then they went into their marketing and they went into their budgeting, which is they explain how the money going to be allocated, who's going to get, how it's going to be all spent, added up to 150,000. So I gave them a high score.
Okay, so just to reiterate, in terms of the proposition, they want to do four things. They want to do dance and singing classes. They want to do Diwali. They want to do vigilante stories and exhibit. And they also want to do an Asian community tour, which showcases Asian cultural landmarks, businesses, and community centers, with the whole aim to promote cultural understanding and provide opportunities for participation. This is their key constituencies are South Asian people with South Asian background. I gave them an overall medium low score for the following reasons. I'll start by what I liked about this application. What I really, really liked about this application is that the outcomes of the proposed activity is about job creation with for 300 performers, 50 small businesses, and skills development for older adults and young people of South Asian background. I think one of the key outcomes is job creation and also community involvement, which I really liked having to understand. Now, in terms of the other things, I gave them a medium low score in cultural activities because the when and where information is missing and would have appreciated to use that information in understanding. I would have also appreciated more information on how the key constituencies will be involved in the development of each of the proposed activities. So while they mention four clear activities, the implementation plan and the execution plan and some specificities around what, where, and when is missing. Um, in terms of accessibility needs for disability community, I gave them a low score because the applicant does not provide information on what specialized accessibility they will provide at these specific activities. They have not gone into, okay, at the Diwali, these will be the accessibility services provided at the exhibit tour and so like that. So they've not really broken down the services. Second is that they've not mentioned that whether they'll be provided by trained professionals or personnel from their organization. Similarly, for I've given them a medium score for non-English speaking community accessibility. Clear implementation plan here is not provided. In terms of marketing, I've given them a low score because although they have given marketing efforts in general, but the question specifically requested marketing efforts to be highlighted for four different groups as defined by the City of Boston. I gave them a high score in budget because they do a medium high score in the budget because a lot of the information that's missing in the narratives finally comes down into the budget section. But the budget again does not provide any estimated expenses for accessibility services and who the service providers will be. Cultural institution goals are not measurables and have not been detailed out year-wise, which is why they get a low score there. So although the outcomes that they wish to create through four of the activities is great and amazing, the proposal needs a little bit more tightening in terms of information on what these events will encompass in terms of where will it happen, when will it happen, what will be the accessibility support services that will be given, and how they will reach out to different constituencies or audiences group as defined by the City of Boston. So I give them overall a medium low score. Thank you.
Thank you. Would like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments.
Okay, seeing no additional comments, panelists, you may finalize your scores. And we'll be moving to the next application. Everyone's all ready to go. We'll be moving into inversion ensemble. Reggie will be the primary and Elaine will be the secondary.
Okay, Inversion Ensemble's requesting $150,000 funding for Inversion's 9th season, which will support 3 concerts over 2024-2025. Inversion's mission is a collection of vocal ensembles dedicated to commissioning and performing timely new works by living composers. Inversion presents themed concerts on a myriad of topics, including LGBTQIA+ rights, racial justice, immigration, climate change, and democratic rights, as well as space exploration, philosophy, natural science, and the ancient elements. Inversion advocates for inclusion through outreach with local public schools, college partners, and annual emerging composer contests. I would have liked to have seen a little more information on the public outreach because it does sound great, but there just wasn't a lot of detail in there. It would have been great for a little more clarity around what this application was in terms of supporting key constituencies. The application states that Inversion partners with community nonprofits to provide them a space to engage with the community. So I would have liked to have read a little and had a little more clarity around this and better understand some more stats across the application, how the organisation primarily serves these key constituencies. 3 past performances have been outlined, which is great in terms of supporting some of the key constituencies. It would have been great to read how the application supports the range of artists and composers who have come from diverse backgrounds and intersectionalities. However, this does not appear to be core to the organisation. The steps, so there's been some great steps to ensure that accessibilities have been met. The marketing plan is good and covers a range of new audiences, tourists, and also reaching audience members with disabilities. For the cultural institutionalization status, there are some really nice long-term plans. However, I wasn't able to determine what year 1 and year 2's focus might be, what their clear steps were for achieving and measuring their goals. Thank you.
Okay, inversion. I feel like they did a good job on going through each one of the steps of the application. I don't have too much more to add. I think, but they did talk about their constituents, which they focus on the Black, African American, Asian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern, Native American, women, non-binary, and LGBTQIA+. So they did, list everyone that they're reaching out to. They have a good history of being active. They have a lot of service history, giving voices, paying equitability, providing a platform. Their cultural leadership, they go into detail and explain their leadership, which are organizational founders and cultural program directors, board directors, the team, creative advisors, collaborator partners, executive and creative leadership. So I felt they did a good job with their application. They went into detail talking about different things they want to provide and offer to the community. And I think they are involving all the people in the community who's at risk of being displaced. So I gave them a high score.
Thank you both. I'd like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, please go ahead and finalize your scores. At this time, once you're done finalizing your scores, we're going to go ahead and take our scheduled lunch break. Since we're wrapping up a touch early, I'm just going to have us come back at 1 o'clock. So you have a little bit over an hour for your lunch break. And then we'll start again. I'll do another welcome for the folks who are attending to give them an overview of the instructions provided to the panelists before we get started, because it'll likely be a new group of people. And then we'll jump right in with the first application of Austin Civic Orchestra. All right, please enjoy your lunch and we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock. Pull up my notes here. All right. Welcome back to the second half of the day of the Thrive Elevate panel for September 4th, 2024. I am Anne Marie McCaskill Davis, Cultural Funding Specialist Senior at the City of Austin's Cultural Arts Division, and I will be helping to facilitate any questions about the Cultural Funding Program for Elevate and Thrive, answering any guidelines related questions. And then we also have here today with us Priscilla Hale, who is our equity facilitator. I'm just going to give a quick overview of the process of what has been given to the panelists as instruction. So today the panelists have reviewed and scored all applications prior to today. They have tentatively made comments and scores for all applications. And as we go through the discussion of each application, the panelists are given an opportunity to make adjustments as they see fit. And we'll be finalizing their scores at the end of each application review. We are allotting a maximum of 10 minutes per application. I will be keeping a timer for that. We'll stop the recording if there are any technical issues, as well as the timer, and then begin again once those are resolved. We've instructed panelists not to repeat any comments. So if they hear something from a panelist that they concur with, we've asked them to just agree, nod their heads. And if they really want to reiterate it, they can, but it's not a requirement. They're not required to repeat similar comments. Panelists are also not scoring on consensus, so they can have divergent opinions, and definitely we encourage them to share those as those arise. We are asking panelists to provide overall application comments and to provide support with critical feedback for future improvement of applications. Panelists should be aligning their comments with the scoring rubric. They should not be including anything that is not within the rubric outline. So, for example, they should not be scoring on financial need or geographic area of service. Neither of those are part of the scoring rubric. We've also instructed panelists to look beyond grantsmanship. So we know that some applicants are a one-person shop. So writing a grant may not be their primary area of expertise. And so we ask panelists to look beyond that as much as possible, but also to make comments to help encourage applicants to improve the presentation of information for future applications. Panelists are also allowed to use firsthand experience or look at an applicant's website to gain additional information or provide that experience to the full panel as part of their consideration. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, they will recuse themselves and turn their camera off and their microphone off to ensure that they are not interfering with the deliberation of the panel, and we'll bring them back to continue discussion at the next application once scores have been finalized for the panel. Okay, so that's our quick rundown of info for today, and we're going to go ahead and get started. The first application up for review is Austin Civic Orchestra. We have a primary reviewer, Ashley, who will provide an introduction of the application. And so this is the way that just for clarification, primary and secondary does not mean that those are the only two people who've reviewed this application. It's just a way for us to ensure that there is someone prepared to speak in more detail about an application, providing an introduction of what that organization's mission is and the activity requested or funds requested for what activity. And also the secondary is there to ensure that we have someone else to provide additional comments. So Ashley is the primary, Reggie is the secondary. I have the timer ready to go for 10 minutes. So Ashley, whenever you're ready to begin, I'll start recording when you begin speaking.
Okay, thanks. So the Austin Civic Orchestra, their mission is to bring transformative power of orchestral music to the widest possible audience, present visionary educational programs, and foster the future of music through accessible, high-quality musical performances in the greater Austin area. They have named their key constituencies as women and people of color. They have demonstrated that they have both women and people of color as performers in the orchestra, as audience members, as people on their board, as people who are conducting and bringing original compositions to the orchestra. So they are demonstrating that they have multiple opportunities for these key constituents to participate. They've also provided statistics, which I think is really great to support their claims and their impact, that 56% of the orchestra leaders are women, 71% are women or people of color. They also made note that their board of directors is growing in terms of the number of people of color are on the board of directors. So I appreciate their honesty about that, but still showing that they're moving forward and trying to make sure their key constituents are seen and served. They are requesting funds for activities that require different concerts that they are putting on. I believe it's I'm trying to scroll through my thing. Six different concerts that they are putting on. Their tickets are free to youth with a $15 general admission with discounts and other free tickets available. Some of the things I wanted to note about their activities is while it's like wide in scope in terms of there's an annual collaboration with the University of Texas String Department. There's one that highlights women composers. There's one around holidays. It's that a couple of the activities have men of color as the primary guest artist. And while I don't feel you need to discriminate against anyone in order to serve a key group of constituents, I do find it interesting that a few of their programs are actually being highlighting other people outside of their key constituents, especially when they say that their statistic for women composers and women leading in the orchestra are really high. So just wanted to make that note. In terms of intersectionality, I feel that they presented a strong case for it. I do feel that their narrative could have been a little bit stronger about showing the intentionality behind the intersectionality. But I do think that it made a strong enough case. In terms of ADA accessibility, they work with 3 different professional companies to provide language accessibility, auditory, and physical accommodations. So very intentional about that. Their marketing efforts all follow methods in which they are able to reach a wide variety of audiences. Trying to see. And then lastly, the last thing I would note is that their goals that they have for the 2-year program, the 2-year period of the grant program are very tangible, and they also have measurable benchmarks, such as like increase by 15% the number of orchestra members. So having very clear benchmarks to see whether or not they have achieved those goals. And that's all.
Thanks, Ashley. Just a couple of things to add to what you've already said. I thought it was really great that there was the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee which was formed to provide continuous ways for them to grow as an anti-racist, anti-sexist institute. It was really great to see how the concerts were open to public with specific outreach welcome women and people of color. This was referenced a few times throughout the grant application. However, it wasn't really detailed how this was either happening or going to happen. It would have been great to see some more information around the plan for that. Accessibility, it would have been good to see a little more detail if this has been done in the past or if this was just for the future plan. It was great that the ticket pricing was accessible for and free for children and youth. The marketing plan, clear. I loved the multi-channeled approach, which covered all audiences, new, existing tourists, and attendees with a disability. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we'd like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments that you may have.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, please finalize your scores. Okay, up next, we'll be reviewing Classical Guitar Alive's Music and Medicine program. Ashley is the primary and Elaine is the secondary.
Ready?
Let me reset my timer actually real quickly. All right, whenever you're ready to begin.
Okay, Classical Guitar Live's Music and Medicine program. It is an organization that presents music to audiences in hospitals and hospices, including those with disabilities, and hospitals and hospices that generally cater to economically disadvantaged and historically underserved communities in Austin. The Music and Medicine program is geared towards working with patients that are of low income, uninsured, or I can't pronounce that word. Indigent people, patients. They work in medical facilities such as the Level 1 Trauma Hospital, the Shriver's Cancer Center, Hospice Austin's Christopher House, and Dell Children's Medical Center. I thought that was fantastic that they are being more specific within the low income community. So actually focusing on places where people that may be uninsured or may not have access to high quality healthcare, that they are focusing on specific facilities. I thought that was really intentional and very nice. Their proposal is to expand their reach through production of documentaries and using public access television. Right now, they focus a lot on the facility itself of where they're going to provide a lot of their accessibility needs. So they rely on the physical accessibility of the hospital and the care centers. They didn't seem to be forward thinking in terms of what other accommodations their musicians can bring as they bring the program in. Also, they don't use any specialized services or trained professionals when it comes to like language accessibility or translations or any other like ASL or any other means for accessibility. And I feel like that could definitely have more intentionality behind it, and that there are definitely ways in order to train the teaching artists and the musicians that are going in order to work with communities that may not be traditional. and also not to rely on the facilities that you're going into. Their measures to market to key constituents are not necessarily highlighted, and they don't have tourist efforts for marketing that are geared specifically towards tourists. And the thinking behind that might be something of the fact, well, if you're in a hospice or a hospital community, you were probably there because you live there. However, just thinking about families that may come from out of town to visit, or families that may have to bring people from out of town to receive some type of care there, just thinking about how to be a little bit more holistic in their approach. Just wanting to also noting that their intersectionality is not clearly defined among their constituents. They may want to rethink how they see the definition of intersectionality to determine if it's at the center of their work, or if intersectionality is more of a byproduct of their work, so something that's done by default. Generally speaking, I feel that their activity of wanting to have these documentaries produced and be on public access television, I think that it's really great in order to expand their audiences, expand their breadth, be able to be more into other hospitals and hospice facilities around the area, around the country, so that more patients are able to benefit from their music and medicine program. I also feel that maybe one thing that I just wanted to suggest is maybe find ways to incorporate some music therapy into their programming, especially if it's going to be on the documentary side of things. So things that can be pre-recorded and things that can be possibly be played continuously, so it can be utilized by patients who may not be able to make it into those public areas of the hospitals, who may be like bedbound or something and can't leave their rooms. And also, of course, really wanting to encourage them to look beyond the accessibility services that are already provided by default of their venues and being more intentional about that. And that's all.
Okay. I like this program because growing up in Austin, the live capital of music, the world, music heals the soul. It has no language. You can listen to music when you're feeling depressed or sad, and that music will lift you up. So I think it's a great program, and it's great to go into the hospice centers with those who transition through the end of days. That is a very beneficial to them to have music that they can hear and relate to. Um, so I just think this is an overall program, and I feel like it really does reach out to the community. It reaches out to those who are being displaced because it's a free program. And I like the fact that they're going to the hospitals because that allow those who are sick and just feeling like there's nothing to do, or any activities, or feel like they're being forgotten, when they come into those centers and play their music for them, that's a real big deal. And that's a big spirit lifter. From my experience, like I said, dealing with all types of music and going from different places and venues in Austin, I really like this program, and I get him high score.
Thank you. Would like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments if you have.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, you may finalize your scores.
I want to apologize for my voice, y'all, because I'm having an allergy day. So,
No worries at all.
Okay.
All right. If we're all ready to go, we can pull up the next application. Austin African American Book Festival. Jake is the primary and Elaine is the secondary. So let me reset the timer. All right, Jake, I'll start the timer as soon as you begin speaking.
Thank you. So AAABF, the Austin African American Book Festival, is proposing to, or they're applying for the grant for their 19th year. They have a theme surrounding rebirth and renewal, and they have some nationally recognized proposals for headliners, as well as all kinds of events and collaboration opportunities for many different organizations within the community. They had mentioned, quote, 20 African-American organizations, not to mention a whole bunch of volunteers. The way that they are structured, they want to continue to have the event be free. The event itself is a series of readings, marketing opportunities, workshops, and community celebrations for African-American writers and the work that they do. And I do think there is genuine effort demonstrated within this application in doing what they say, which is uplifting and preserving African American literary works while countering cultural erasure and displacement. I found that the budget that they proposed was worthy, accessible, and well managed, but particularly due to the collaborations that they are proposing, it seems like this is one organization that really houses many different opportunities, particularly for like young adult participants in the African American Book Festival. I found this to be something that I was happy to give a high grade based on a positive history of service.
Okay, yes. Austin African American Book Festival. It's a great festival. Even though it says African American Book Festival, they have books for all genders and race and age limits. So I think that's really great. They talked about their history. They talked about all the festivals and the long service they have done in Austin, which at one point the lady of this organization had her own bookstore, because I'm a reader myself, so I used to buy a lot of books at her store. So and they talks about the key constituents, which is important for them to pinpoint. And like I said, it's free to the public, so that's really great. So everybody can enjoy it. And they work out of Washington, George Washington Carver Museum, which is a great place to go and essentially located. So therefore, everybody can get there, and it is good for tourism. And then they talked about the culture activities, which is a theme Black Noir, Rebirth and Renewal, which is for the 2025 book festival, which is going to be a good thing. Like they also talk about the kids edition, and they also bring in authors so they can sign. You can have a book signing, which I know last year they did Nikki Giovanni, which she's one of my favorite poets. And then they also talks about the training. They have training workshops, ASL interpreters, which is great sign language. We have designated quiet areas if you want to go and just sit and read. Plain language material. They did great speaking up on their marketing. Going into utilizing social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, which this is how everybody get all the information is through all the social media sites. So that's great. Then they went in detail about their budget, exactly what they're going to use the grant money for, and went through each outline of which one of all the allocations of the money. So I give them a high score.
Thank you, Ms. Elaine and Jake. Would like to invite other panelists. Any comments you'd like to share?
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, please go ahead and finalize your scores. Okay, next application up for review is Soar to New Heights. Anchika is the primary and Jake is the secondary. Let me reset the timer. All right, and whenever you're ready to begin, I'll start the timer when you begin speaking.
Thank you. So this is Uprise Circus slash Soar to New Heights. They provide circus, arts, and social development programs at no cost for teens who are members of a historically marginalized demographic. They are requesting $139,521 for conducting two things. One is to conduct trapeze classes, which are held over a 7-week session in the fall, spring, and summer. And they also wish to host an annual showcase that features a mix of student, teachers, and guest performers. What I really like about this application is that they hire local guest performers who are engaged in developing the showcase by creating their own choreography, giving them a professionally paid outlet for their own creative expression. Showcases are free and are open to the public and are widely advertised to draw residents and tourists. The desired outcomes is to reach at least 70 young adults with classes. What I also really like about this application is that they measure program success through a participant survey at the beginning and end of each session. And the surveys evaluate participants' growth in areas of perseverance and hope, as well as social relationships. They consider a program to be successful if 70% of the program participants show growth. So this is, I think, one of the applications one of the only applications that mentions impact measurement in such a strong way, which I really, really appreciate. Coming to the specificities, I scored them high in terms of key constituencies because they're very clearly laid out. These are constituents who are in the age of between 11 to 17, living in a household with low income, they're BIPOC, members of the 2S LGBTQ community, involved in foster care, history of trauma, deaf, or a person who's neurodiverse. So they clearly meet the definition defined by City of Austin, which are but they're both institutionally marginalized as well as at the risk of cultural erasure and displacement. In terms of history of service, I gave them a high score as well because they have a rich history of serving these key constituencies. They have expanded their focus and they also relaxed eligibility. They started with foster care, but now they relaxed this eligibility to meet more people between the ages of 11 to 17. They have increased access to developing social, emotional skills for teens who come from marginalized backgrounds. They offer opportunities for youth and volunteers to develop career skills, leadership skills, build networks. And one key thing that I wish to highlight is that aerial classes, and they've mentioned in the proposal, is that aerial classes are expensive and flying trapeze classes are at least a $70 per hour. Their students and volunteers are training to fly trapeze skills at no cost, which is amazing. Cultural leadership given them a high score because majority of the organization's administrative and creative leadership have deeply rooted cultural understanding and have lived experience that reflects of their key constituencies. Cultural activities gave them a high score again. The proposal program is very well articulated. Information of what, where, when is clearly given. The outcome statement is that they want to reach 70 young adults, which they will also track and measure. So that's great. Intersectionality and inclusion, I gave them a medium score. Would have liked an example of an alumni teen with intersectional identities and how this program understood and addressed it in some way, and what were some of these multiple overlapping vulnerabilities of the key constituencies. So gave them a medium score there. They have taken care of the services that they wish to provide in the proposed activities for both communities with disability as well as non-English speaking communities. So gave them high score respectively there as well. Marketing, it's the same thing. While the marketing channels are clearly identified, the exact strategy within the key constituencies is not clearly given. So gave them a low score there. The budget is reflective of the narrative, has all the required expenses that they've talked about earlier. Cultural institution, given them a high score because they have the proposed goals for the 2-year grant cycle are very well aligned with the characteristics of what a cultural institution should be. The organization is focused on increasing the revenue, expanding partnerships, enhancing audiences, and strengthening the board, which are all important towards achieving that status. But there are a couple of areas of improvement. They could, in the future, maybe think about an endowment development and look at other revenue opportunities. They could also think about a physical infrastructure, if they could look at identifying a location or improvement of existing facilities to accommodate programs and audiences. I gave them a high score here, but these are some areas of improvement, perhaps maybe that they could keep in mind. Overall, I'm giving them a high score. Proposal is strong. Activities are very well laid out. Accessibility language supports are clearly identified and planned for. The only area of improvement here is marketing. So I wish that they had provided targeted marketing efforts for each of their constituency groups, but that's the only area. So yeah, thank you.
I completely agree. I actually think there is not much that remains unsaid. However, I do also would suggest for marketing, I think there would be a need to go beyond social media. I think that that could be something that would be instrumental in reaching out and finding some sort of way to have testimony. There are such specific proposals within this application, specifically how, I mean, how circus arts affect neurodivergent youth. I mean, that's like 3 areas of highly specialized knowledge. And I think they do quite a good job of explaining how it's connected. But I think that that could be something that might help them in their sustainability, is really emphasizing how this very specific practice has a very specific outcome for this specific community.
Thank you both. Would like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments that you may have.
Okay, seeing as there are no additional comments, please finalize your scores. Okay, let's go on to the next application, which is Aslan Dance Company. Reggie will be the primary and Elaine will be the secondary.
I think City
the-
Theater Austin is next.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Skipped one. All right, City Theater Austin, then it will be Aslan. So City Theater, Elaine is the primary and Anshika is the secondary. Elaine, when you begin speaking, I will start the 10-minute timer.
Okay, the City Theater Austin, they are applying for both grants. Their theater mission has been to serve 3 overlapping groups: the Austin audience. City Theater showcase diverse and challenging theater works that represent a variety of life experiences. Austin stage artists, over the course of almost 180 comedy, dramedy, and musical productions, and other Austin theater companies, in our new theater space at the Genius Creative Collective. They are a venue, I believe, the Capitol Theater and venue. So their history is about They were founded in 2006, a group of actors and directors with the goal of creating a space where theater lovers could create and perform classic, award-winning plays and musicals for the audience of Central Texas. Okay, they go into detail of the need for this program and their constituents, who they will be serving through the program. They talk about their stages. They have 50 backstage artisans, such as custom designers, stage managers, set designers, and 75 plus actors. Their leadership, the City Theater brand new leadership team consists of 8-member board of directors and an artistic director operations manager. Okay, they talk about their history, experience, and what they will bring to the community and all the ones who they are serving in the community. And the purpose, proposed public activities, in addition to internal research, City Theater solicit inputs from all of its key constituents to determine our show slate. Audience members are surveyed, and crew and cast members submit show ideas for consideration, which is good. So they making sure everybody's equally involved in the productions. Over the course of 2025 and 2026, the City Theater expects to produce between 16 and 20 shows, which should schedule for 11 to 15 performances. Okay, and they list some of the shows that they are having under consideration to perform. Intersectional, the participants and audience is part of every theater experience is seeing and combine elements of themselves with the characters and stories being portrayed on the stage. Okay, it's another way they're trying to make sure everybody's included and feel accepted in the arts theater. Okay, their language. They are providing English. It's primarily English language, but they're going to be providing audience accommodation for non-English speakers, including translation services for certain shows. Okay, well, that's great for all to be included. And they go through some more proposed activities for the program. They have a list of that, and they go into the points about their budget, which they go into details about how the money is going to be allocated, how they paying artists, and how since they are a venue, they don't have any money for allocated for the venue, and so they talk about let's see what else they got on here. Status. They go into the 2-year plan grant cycle steps. So they talk about the 18 years City Theater has been in service, and so they talks about their hiring additional staff, hiring additional technical staff, funding the community outreach, and creating expanded budgets to show production, including sets, costume, and props. So I thought they did a really great job of explaining what they need the money for, how they're going to spend it, how they're going to be involved with the community, how they have inclusion. So I gave them a high score.
Yes, so I think what I really liked about this application is that this will lead to jobs and economic development of the city, and at the same time, a melting pot of arts and culture for the community to come together. What I also like that they strive for affordable tickets so that maximum persons from the community can engage and enjoy some of the best live theater performances that are happening in Austin. But overall, I'm going to give this application low for a number of reasons. One is that in the key constituency section, they've not clearly identified who the key constituencies are. So I found it challenging to mark them whether the key constituencies are at cultural erasure or displacement, or they're are institutionally marginalized. So I would have liked more information, and clearly I outline information on who key constituencies are and which part of the community do they come from or what their background is. Second, in terms of cultural activities, I've given them a medium high score. There is a detailed description of what they wish to do, which Aileen has already provided us information with. But I would have liked more information on expected outcomes, and that would have been helpful. For example, how many artists will get jobs, or what will be the community engagement look like, what will be the revenue generation, etc. So a little bit details on that would have been useful in terms of outcomes. They have laid out how input is solicited from key constituencies to determine the show. So that was great. Coming to accessibility supports for PWDs, for persons with disability, I've given them a medium score because the response demonstrates the City Theatre is committed to providing accessible experience for individuals with disabilities. Particularly the partnership with Genesis Creative Collection, along with specific accommodation, indicate a thoughtful approach to accessibility. However, information on whether these services will be provided by trained professional or not is not clearly mentioned. Information on how they will engage American Sign Language interpreters is not provided. Similarly, information on how they could use written formats in Braille, pre-show briefings, sensory-friendly performances is not clearly laid out. So I'm going to give them a medium score there. In terms of language support, I would have really liked, they have mentioned that they're open to it, but have not mentioned the services, what kind of services would they be able to provide and who will be delivering these services. So I'm giving them a low score in language support. In terms of marketing efforts are very well laid out, but no information on how they use these different channels to attract specific audiences, as is mentioned in the question. Which marketing medium will they help use to reach out to tourists, to their key constituencies, to persons with disabilities. So that was not clear. Overall, I'm giving them a low because just to reiterate it again, that I did not understand the background of the key constituencies. The outcomes is not clearly laid out, and accessibility supports is not really mentioned in detail, with no information on who the trained professionals will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Would like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments you may like to share.
I do agree with a lot of what Anshika said. There's a lot of vagueness in the application and a lot of like general presentation of information, but not specifics or details. I do want to point out that they did say that they are looking into expanding the diversity of their board, and that they recently are expanding the diversity of their board, and hopefully they're going to do some more, and that will start bringing in new perspectives. So hopefully once that actually occurs, and once those perspectives are not only brought to the table but actually infused into the mission and into the activities that they're doing, that some of these areas in terms of language and marketing and identifying actual key constituencies will be made a lot more clear.
Thank you. Any additional comments?
Okay, seeing that there are none, please finalize your scores. And now, once you finalize those scores, please go ahead and move on to Atsalan Dance Company. That's what is up next. I'll give everyone a moment to finalize those last scores for City Theater. All right. So Reggie will be the primary for this application and Elaine will be the secondary. All right. I've reset the timer for 10 minutes. So Reggie, whenever you're ready, when you begin speaking, I'll start the timer.
Thank you. Okay, so the Atsalan Dance Company is seeking $120,000 for the Atsalan Dance Conservatory, their capacity building initiative, to archive 5 decades of dance. establish classes for students ranging from youth to their beloved elderly, and setting a defined curriculum in the Atzlan technique and performance. In tandem with the conservatory, the Atzlan Dance Company will produce La Senora, an original Atzlan choreodrama production that chronicles their founder, the late Maria Salinas. In her pivotal story in arriving to Austin in the 1960s during the Chicano movement, and how they directly engage with the community and cultural arts. Their mission is to create stable and conducive environment for the creation, performance, preservation of contemporary expressive Chicano Latino dance related to the arts in Austin, Texas specifically. They serve their key constituents and deliver their creative mission by serving their communities, and their history of service is centralized around their key constituencies, and that's been made clear, I think, in the application. The board does bring wonderful skills from a variety of different backgrounds in terms of professions. However, I found it a bit difficult to tell if they all had specific lived experiences with and around the key constituencies. The activity appears to be immortalizing a legacy, which will form a prominent part of the history of Austin, which I thought was great. The film will also serve as a marketing tool for Austin City and for the organization. I really liked the wellness mobility program in terms of accessibility with the Connolly Guerrero Senior Center to help with their senior engagement in dance and cultural arts. Two of their board members are professionally trained in youth ADA care certification, which ensures that they're responsive to the needs of the ADA community and their performance is ADA accessible compliant. With the marketing plan, the film will support a wider reach for their key constituencies and hopefully globally. It would have been great to see a little bit more specifics in terms of what marketing channels will be used and how they will be specifically targeting and reaching audience members beyond their existing audience. The budget looked fair. It would have been good to see a little more detail on how the money might be spent and how it might be split, for example, recording equipment and editing, and a little more detail around things like that. Thank you.
Okay, I thought this was a good program so they can keep the culture, the Mexican American culture alive in East Austin, because right now it's disappearing. So that's part of who the key constituents are, but knowing a little bit about this program, they may focus on doing the arts and the culture, presenting Mexican American, but the program is really open to everybody to come and enjoy. So that's how I see that for us into the constituencies. The leadership, which is outlined pretty well, who the dance group director is, a little bit about her history and how she came about doing the program, and showing some of the awards that was received. So the history part is good. They really lay that out who actually is a part of the program. And is they currently developing the Asalon Dance Conservatory. I think that is great. 5 decades of dancing. And the intersectional, they've been around since the 70s, so they maintain deep roots in East Austin with the Mexican American Chicano community. And I know a lot of people don't understand what the word means, Chicano. If you grew up in this area, you know that is a proud name to be called in the Mexican community. And so the history is good. Accessibility is committed to wellness of the community and age seniors. And the center that they're in, Conley Guerrero, it is a senior center. So I understand why they're looking at the seniors in that community, because that's pretty much what the Conley Guerrero Senior Center is focused on. And they're fully engaged in dual methodologies and all education, classroom performance, and lecture presentation endeavors. And their marketing, they go in detail about their marketing, how they market for the particular community, and which is digital community strategy, partnership, and evaluation and optimization. And I thought their budget was good. They're not including some of the other supplies and material because the County Guerrero, some of those things they're allowed to is provided for them. So overall, I gave them a good score.
Would like to invite any other panelists to share any comments. If you like that.
Okay, seeing none, please finalize your scores. Okay. Next up is Color Arc Productions. Ashley is the primary and Reggie is the secondary. All right, and Ashley, whenever you're ready, I've got the timer set and I'll start it for 10 minutes once you begin speaking.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to pull it up. Okay. Color Art Productions, their mission has been to shine a light on inclusive stories through theater, film, and music. Their key constituencies have always been historically underfunded, marginalized communities at risk of cultural erasure and displacement, such as Asian American Pacific Islander, Black, Indigenous people of color, LGBTQIA+, women, elders, and disabled people. They have material that is both written by and for their key constituencies that they produce, which I think is great, and it shows that they are not just bringing a product or bringing creative outlet to their key constituents, but they're also involving them in what it is. Their board and leadership reflect who their key constituents are. They have a diverse makeup across the entire spectrum of the acronym BIPOC and the ALANA acronym, so that they are very inclusive. Their intersectionality is evident among the creators of what's produced and the art and the content of what is produced. They also take feedback from their audience members about the content and whether or not it was relatable and impactful to them. I really liked the story that they gave of the sweet potato pig, that production, and using that in particular as an example of their intersectionality. It's between food, it's between ethnicity, it's between demographics and location of where you live. And they recruited an intersectional team of AAPI, BIPOC women, and queer artists to create the film. So I really love that example. In terms of accessibility and language accessibility, they translate their productions into ASL, Vietnamese, Chinese, and Spanish. So across the spectrum, they have other accessibility measures that they utilize. ASL interpretation, closed captioning. They use trained professionals, ADA compliance. So they make sure to cover that area really well. Their marketing strategies, I think, are really creative when it comes to tourists, especially. They lay out being able to partner with some particular organizations, and also being able to highlight those different industries within the tourism industry within their content. But I would also say that while it's creative, I think that it could be a lot more specific and a lot more targeted, because I feel that if you're not looking to see yourself within the content as a tourist, then you're probably not gonna find it because it's really vague. So I think that being more specific would help them. I also think that they're relying really heavily on uh, uplifting the protagonist and the characters of their story and saying that's how you're going to draw in new audiences because of the plot line or the content itself. So I think it's creative, but I think that there just needs to be more specificity and more direct intentionality behind it. They're asking to use this money for 6 different productions. 7, I don't think I can count. 7 different productions. And they all are within the content of their key constituencies. So I feel like they're staying true to their mission and the goals that they have for the 2-year period of the grant are clear, and they also have benchmarks such as like their fundraising benchmark, and also benchmarks in terms of how they want to hire new staff, and then how they want to create a larger volunteer pool of people and bring in more collaborations with community leaders. So overall, I thought that they presented a good argument for their needs and for their program, but it would just be nice if they could be more specific about marketing strategies. But yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Ashley. I don't have a whole lot to add. I thought that their stories in their work intend to represent many groups and speak from real lived experiences. They cover many different backgrounds, and I think their stories would resonate with their direct audience and constituency groups, as well as far beyond that. I thought it would be great to see a little more history in the history section, just around how the organizations help provide leadership roles and career development, networking and mentoring. The budget looks really good. I thought there might want to be a little bit more money moved into the marketing section just to align with their marketing plans, but otherwise it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Ashley, I'd like to invite other panelists. Oh, Emery, did you want to? Oh, you're muted, Emery.
So Rocio Pena Martinez has joined us. She's also a panelist. Is just being able to pop in. So she has scored and reviewed these applications prior to today. And we'll welcome any feedback or comments you have for Color Arc Productions.
Yeah, so any
Yeah,
panelists that were
yeah.
First and second. So
Yes.
this is an opportunity to do that.
No additional comments? Okay, please go ahead and finalize your scores. And so now we are at our final break of the day. So let's give ourselves, let's just say 2:15. I'll give you guys an extra 2 minutes. And then we'll wrap up the last 5 applications of the day. So see you all back here in 15 minutes. All right, welcome back. Our next application up for review is Deaf Austin Theater. Our primary is Ashley, and our secondary is Reggie. And Ashley, are you all set, or submittable still loading?
No, it's back.
Okay. I have the timer ready to go. So whenever you begin speaking, I'll start the timer.
Okay. Deaf Austin Theater's mission is to empower the deaf and hard of hearing artists to create and produce original works and classics in ASL. They serve over 70,000 deaf individuals in greater Austin area. They have listed their key constituencies as deaf and hard of hearing individuals, including deaf blind individuals, deaf LGBTQIA, community members, BIPOC communities, artists, staff, and creative advisors who are deaf and hard of hearing, hearing individuals, and local collaborators. They are seeking $150,000 for 5 different productions throughout their season. I loved hearing about the founding of the organization with Russell Harvard, who's a trailblazing deaf actor and Texas native, and he was inspired by his experiences in mainstream theater and film to create a Deaf Austin Theater with some friends, so that it can be rooted in ASL and inclusivity. The decision-making power and leadership of the organization lies within the board and leadership team. It's a very diverse board and leadership team, comprised entirely of deaf and hard of hearing individuals. And they're all of different racial, gender, and cultural backgrounds. So I absolutely love that. They present their intersectionality through the audiences in which they are marketing to, as well as through their casting. They allow racial, ethnic, and ability demographics to intersect on multiple lines, so that their content stays true to their key constituencies and also invites in a wide range of audience members. In terms of accessibility, they have staff trainings, which I think is fantastic. They have website accessibility that they name. They use large print font. They do translations for English that is provided, but they didn't mention any other languages that translations could be done in. And just thinking of the demographics of Austin, it might be good for Spanish to be considered, at least as a secondary translation. In terms of their budget, they didn't have anything in the accessibility line, even though they mentioned different measures that I'm assuming cost money, like printing materials, using large font, the tools that you have to embed into your website for accessibility measures. So just thinking about that. And also their marketing line item is not as detailed as the other line items. It just has a number there. But going back to their marketing narrative, it's probably reflective of the fact that I felt their marketing narrative was pretty vague in terms of what their strategies are that they were going to incorporate. Most of their strategies were just pretty general. They didn't mention anything about specifically targeting new audiences or specifically targeting tourists that come. So the fact their marketing line item is vague probably relates to that. Generally speaking, I felt that they presented themselves well in terms of what their activities were going to be and how it would lift up their key constituents. I think they're very strong in that as their foundation and very strong as that as their guiding star. But I do feel that they can expand themselves outside of their key constituents just with a little bit more effort, especially with the translation and with marketing. And that's all.
Thank you. And I just want to have one, before Reggie starts, just one clarifying note in terms of language accessibility. We do include ASL interpretation, as ASL interpretation is, or ASL, American Sign Language, is its own non-English language. So we do count that as part. It can be counted as both accessibility, the accessibility question, as well as within the language accessibility question. So I just wanted to make sure that that was a clear update.
Thank you. I thought it was great that there was lots of opportunities created by providing leadership opportunities through the board and opportunities for traditionally underemployed deaf artists. And there's quite a bit of detail around that. So that was fantastic. All the collaborations are really innovative and open up to so many more attendees and followers to support the organization. I really like the concept of the groundbreaking production featuring an all-black cast that you will unite the DHH, sorry, and hearing artists of color showcasing their talents in a powerful and inclusive performance. Similar views on the marketing. It would have been great to see a little more detail around how the new markets would be attracted to your performances, and also how you attract the tourist audiences, which I'd imagine would be quite a large opportunity there. I think the goals are great, and establish stability within the organization, but should be combined with some external growth, perhaps in terms of the audience growth as well. And seeing some measurables in there would be great too. Thank you.
Thank you. Would like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments you'd like to share.
Okay, I'm seeing none. If you will go ahead and finalize your scores, we can prepare to move on to the next application. Okay, the next application up for review is Dance Africa Fest. Primary is Jake and Ashley is the secondary. Let me reset the timer. Okay, Jake, whenever you're ready to begin, I'll start the timer.
Thank you. So Dance Africa Fest has been around since 2014. They are primarily producing content around dancing and drumming from members of the African diaspora. They are serving not only Austin, but they say that they have both artists and audience members and also students, which I thought was interesting, from Round Rock, Pflugerville, Bastrop, San Antonio, and so on and so on. They said Houston and Dallas, so apparently this is attracting a lot of people and centering it all on Austin as a hub. They seem to have a continued rate of growing success. And something that I also thought was noteworthy, they represent 10 different countries. I could list them all, but they represent, the Caribbean, various places in Africa, and various cities in the United States. So I really think that this demonstrates, yet again, similar to the other organization I was talking about before, like an umbrella organization that actually serves a lot of different communities and overlapping things. And so talk about intersectionality within this cultural space and practice of African dance and drums. I think they do a pretty good job of demonstrating successful resource management. The area for improvement that I would recommend, it seems like the budget that they are requesting is dedicated almost entirely to this one event, which makes it seem like it would be, a fantastic event. But I do wonder if they could not diversify either in building up the organization or discussing a little bit more with greater specificity what artists that beyond this event they're going to include, or if they might be able to improve upon this year's success or any specificity in those kinds of plans. Otherwise, however, I thought it was good. I thought it was good.
Thanks, Jake. I agree with primarily everything you said. I've been to Dance Africa Fest, not in Austin, but in DC. Love a good Dance Africa festival. I do think that they're very clear about their key constituencies, have multiple avenues in which people can plug into them. So through attending one of the performances, taking one of the classes, being a vendor, donating, being a volunteer, all those things that are listed. I think that's great. In terms of their marketing, the one thing that I would suggest is that they have more strategies to target the tourism industry, especially because they already said that they attract people outside of Austin proper. And this is a national festival organization that is in other major cities across the country. So thinking about how you could attract tourists coming from maybe some of those same cities where there's a Dance Africa Fest, or just from, like, they named Dallas and Houston. So, like, how would you actually specifically bring Dallas and Houston to Austin for Dance Africa Fest? So being more specific about that is what I would encourage them to do. Other than that, I thought it was a strong application.
Thank you, Ashley and Jake. I'd like to invite other panelists to offer any comments that you would like to share.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, you may finalize your scores. Right, the next application up for review is Artly World. Anchika is the primary and Jake is the secondary. Let me reset the timer. All right, Anchika, whenever you're ready to begin, I will start the timer.
Yeah, I'm ready. So this is Artly World, and they're requesting $150,000 to host 1 or 2 public educational workshops every month through the course of the grant, which will also be recorded. And these educational workshops will focus on South Asian art, music, and dance forms, featuring demonstrations and performances by local artists. There's one more thing that they wish to do with the grant funding is host an annual event called Wonderful India Festival, which is planned for spring 2025, which will showcase performances on Indian music and dance traditions by local artists and community groups. So, public educational workshops and an annual event, both focusing on Indian music and dance traditions. I give them a high score in terms of key constituencies because they've clearly identified them as artists, musicians, and performers from Austin South Asian immigrant community. History of service, I gave them a high score there as well. The applicant has a strong history of serving marginalized communities, particularly Austin South Asian immigrant population. They focus on providing opportunities for these communities to celebrate their heritage through public arts programming and events aligned with their founding goals. The applicant has also successfully created opportunity for the key constituencies through leadership roles by providing a platform for local Indian artists to share their personal stories and artistic practices. They've also provided jobs in the Wonderful India Festival, which was supported earlier by the Elevate grant, created employment opportunities for numerous local artists and performers. 1 second. Just going to quickly scroll down. In terms of cultural leadership, I give them a high score because the role of Roshan Manjunath as the driving force behind the organization is very well defined. His personal background and vision align with the organization goals. There's diverse representation in their board and management that includes individuals with lived experience as Indian artists, musicians, performers. They also have the same representation on their advisory committee, ensuring that the organization's decisions are grounded in cultural authenticity. Cultural activities, I give them a medium low score because details on where is not provided. Also, it could have been useful to know all these educational workshops involve non-Indians from the Austin community because in the narrative they are focused on that these workshops are open to everybody in general. But the implementation in terms of how they want to do that is not provided. So I wish they had given more details on the 2 activities in terms of location, in terms of where, and also a clear implementation plan. Intersectionality inclusion, give them a high score because the response very explicitly identifies the intersectional identities of the artists. They're working with immigrants, they're working with minority, they're working with women, and some of them also victims of domestic violence. In terms of accessibility for individuals with disability and non-English communities, in terms of accessibility for disability community, I gave them a medium score. There is a clear implementation plan on what kind of supports will be provided at the two proposed activities. Although very general information is shared, would have been useful to give supports activity-wise in details, which is very helpful for generally for all applicants is if they can give these support services activity-wise, what happens at the wonderful India Festival, and what happens at the education workshops, what are the different accessibility supports that are required at each event, because these are different in nature. For example, other venues where the activity take place will be equipped with features such as wheelchair ramps, accessible rooms, assistable listening devices, are all printed materials, including brochures, flyers, and websites provided in accessible formats like Braille, large print, digital. So information of that nature would have been more useful. Details related to the services with non-English speaking communities is given, and names of service providers is also mentioned. Marketing, overall, the response demonstrates a comprehensive approach for reaching the target audiences, but the response misses mentioning marketing efforts for people with disability. It also combines efforts between new audiences, which is within Austin's key constituencies, and tourists. So I think a clarification and a distinction between the four audience groups would have been more appreciated. The budget shows all the required expenses and has detailed descriptions which matches with what they wish to do. Overall, proposal sounds promising, focuses on South Asian immigrant artists, musicians, and performers. Accessibility, accommodations really needs more strengthening, so that's one area of improvement. Marketing efforts for people who are non-Indian or who are not from the South Asian background and are also not fluent in English, probably one more language like Spanish or any other language, that needs to be thought of. And to open the Wonderful India Festival and educational workshops for City of Austin key constituencies. So I think they need to really look at the marketing efforts beyond their immediate key constituencies. And there's one question for the applicant that I had, and I'm sure that how that will be answered, but maybe something to look out for the future. They could mention the information on whether these artists and musicians which are producing the art form, do they work as a full-time basis? Are they experts? Or are these folks with other jobs who just participate in these festivals? Because that makes a useful data point to consider. Overall, I give them a medium score. There are areas of improvement that I've mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, I just wanted to clarify that for the language accessibility, it's not a requirement that Spanish be the secondary language. It can be any language other than English.
Oh, am I on? Yes, I'm. I agree. Not only do I agree, I would commend you on a really thorough read of that application. I have one thing to add, which is, yes, I do think they demonstrate good cultural leadership in the marketing, especially to their key constituencies. They discuss that their two target demographics are tourists and the general public. And they talk about how they have a program for getting people to attend that are like new to Austin. And then they talk about all of the platforms that they are able to market with, including a lot of like local media that really is quite specific to Austin. And then they talk about people of Indian origin within Austin, kind of indicating a bifurcation of a non-specified ethnic tourist base that is their primary goal to market to, and a local community that they have a lot of firepower to be able to talk to. And I do wonder, while I know that intersectionality is covered here in one way, having seen the like multiple ways that intersectionality can be applied as a lens in some of these other organizations, I do wonder if there's not a missed opportunity here, which is other folk within Austin that could allow this organization to grow. Or maybe that is something that they have considered. Far be it from me to surmise, but I do think that that was an interesting gap in the marketing, especially for something that is so focused locally on Austin geography.
Thank you, Jane. I want to add something here just to, before we add the other comments, is that in terms of like thinking about cultural erasure and equity, I've heard a lot today around folks talking about other communities. And what we really also want to make sure that we're emphasizing is that when folks are creating programming and doing for programming, one of the things around equity is that things are by, for, and about folks, and that but the byproduct of that is that other people could join into that, but it's not necessarily that you're saying we also are now wanting to make sure that, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like part of that is ensuring that folks could come if that's something that they're interested in, but it's also making sure that the artistic expression of particular cultures is available to cultures that are here and who are leaving, who have a history of leaving because of the things that are not available to them here anymore. This all came out of a study that was done as part of the equity around the need for cultural spaces and social spaces to be present and active for people to feel like that they are home and can stay and remain. So I just want us to keep that in mind as we're continuing to think about this. So at this time, I'd like to invite other panelists to share any additional comments that they'd like to share.
I actually have a comment related to what Priscilla just explained, and this is from the cultural activities response. The applicant's response reads, most Indian arts and music events, while open to the public, are marketed and organized primarily through channels more specifically aimed at Indian audiences, and or held in venues where the general public may feel uncomfortable attending, for example, temples and cultural centers. I understood this as the applicant's desire to expand their audience, but I did make a note here that to me that they should be very careful about cultural erasure in their own programming and in their desire to expand.
Anyone else? There's about 15 seconds left. Okay. Go ahead and finalize your scores. Okay, the next application up for review is Folklore y Ritmos de Panama. And let's see, Elaine is the primary and Anshika is the secondary. Let me get my timer here. And Elaine, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Folklore Ritmos is a dance. It's a dance program. They primary constituents are extensive Latino American community, of which the Panamanians are integral part. So they mainly focus on the Panamanian community. They also just talk about their history, which is that they're stating that they notice an underrepresentation of certain Latinx groups like Colombians, Venezuelans, Peruvian, Cuban, and others. So they are on behalf of our attendees and major presentations aren't of Panamanian descent. Okay. Part of our history of service includes adjusting programming based on feedback from the community, including adding educational components that explain dances and costume during performances to those unfamiliar with Panamanian culture. Their cultural leadership is a demographic organization where all members are expected to be part of the decision-making process. These members bring their diversity from many corners, including ethnic, creed, economic, gender, professional backgrounds, to use these traits to influence our decisions collectively. Okay, so they name some of their leaders, cultural, and then their cultural activities will include the National Dance Festival event featuring performances, which are going to be held in 2025 fall. They also have performance by the National Ballet Company of Panama. They rent the spaces, looks like they're saying talks and rent from Austin Independent School District, Performing Arts Center, the Intersectional. Okay, they aim to embrace and celebrate the rich diversity within Panamanian and broader Latin American communities. Okay, they describe the accessibility for disabled. Let's see, they bring in a language. So majority of members are both Spanish and English speakers. Their events are always in both language. So they're pretty much saying that they already have the language for their constituents. And then marketing, they discuss utilizing all the social media sites, video performances, radio and TV channels. And then the budget goes into details about how the money is going to be used. How they're going to pay the artists. Some of the artists will get paid. And they just outline all the allocations of the money to add up to be $150,000. And they talk about their plans for the next year. So they talk about the board, having more board of directors with diverse expertise in artists, culture, business, and community engagement. So I get them a high score because they are catering to their constituents, which is the Panamanian Latin community.
Okay. So I gave them a high score in cultural activities because they've very clearly laid out what they wish to do, which is a national dance festival. They've given timelines that will happen in the fall of 2025. The performance by the National Ballet Company will happen in the summer of 2025. Venue would be AIST Performance Arts Center. And the third activity is the immersive event for art from Panama's Afro-descendant community, which will happen at the Dell Jewish Community Center in November. So in terms of detailing out the when, where, what of the proposed activities is very clearly mentioned. I give them a medium low score on history of service because they have not provided enough information on its founding history and also particularly given examples of opportunity creation. It would have been helpful to know what are the opportunities, and especially as it is defined in the question, whether it will be networking, leadership, social services, community engagement. If any of those opportunity creation is happening, that has not been clearly mentioned, and also how key constituencies are benefiting socially and economically. So if they would have given that context, it would have been easy to understand clearly and at the outset how is the need being met. In terms of cultural leadership, I've given them high score, very well representation of board advisory committee members. In terms of cultural activities, the although the activities are very clearly mentioned, the outcome statement has not been provided. It would have been useful to understand how the impact they wish to create through the above three activities, whether there'll be job creation or community engagement, or any other benefit that the key constituencies will accrue. That's not mentioned. And it's always nice to have that outcome statement laid out clearly, highlighting what is the larger impact that they wish to create through the activities. I've given them a high score in intersectionality because they have defined what intersectionality means to them and to their key constituencies, and how that is included in the creation and presentation of the activities. Overall, I'm giving the applicant a medium high score because their proposal sounds very promising. Just a few tweaks here and there in terms of getting information on the intended outcomes and the opportunities that the festivals will create for the people of Panama, other Latin American people. That is one suggestion. The other suggestion is that the marketing efforts for one of the audiences as defined in the question, which is persons with disability, is not mentioned. Otherwise, everything else in terms of their marketing is very clearly laid out. So I'm giving them a medium high score. The proposal is promising. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'd like to invite other panelists to add any additional comments that you'd like to share.
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, please go ahead and finalize your scores. And we will be moving on to our final application of the day. EQ Austin. Reggie will be our primary, and Elaine will be our secondary. Let me reset the timer. Okay, Reggie, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Thanks, Emery. I found this grant application very strong. EQ Austin is requesting $150,000 to support strategies to integrate Austin's music diversity, including its marginalized genre and subgenres in high-profile destination events that have helped stimulate more equitability, oh my gosh, and welcoming creative ecosystems. EQ Austin's thoughtfully curated and well-publicized live music showcase centers on BIPOC artists and introduces them to new audiences. Creating destination events for people of color has been a difficult proposition for the city. They've shown how the work that they do and that they're planning to do is really important and impactful to their key constituents. The training, marketing, and PR for artists and the support that they provide to assist with entries into performing at such large festivals is really fantastic and vital for their key constituents to have a platform like this to play to large audiences. Their history of service is really impressive. They've also have a plethora of artist opportunities and improving access for opportunities for key constituencies and make a real impact. Their wide range of events throughout the year is great. It highlights EQ Austin's thoughtfully curated and well-publicized live music showcase center on BIPOC artists. For example, they have an annual program, which I thought was fantastic. So in winter, they guide key constituents to performing at the annual Trail of Lights. In spring, there's numerous performance opportunities, which they book emerging artists of color into things such as official South by Southwest showcases. And then in summer, they celebrate Black Music Month in Austin and a range of other things, including Austin curated showcases across the country in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, and Latin America, which I thought was fantastic because it provides all year round opportunities for all of the artists. The leadership team reflects their key constituency groups, and also most of them have they all have outstanding music-related roles and backgrounds, and there's a lot of evidence of real lived experiences amongst the leadership team. There's proven track record of supporting their key constituencies and high success rates, which they've outlined in great detail. Their intersectionality is a key component of this proposal. The proposal names the intersectionality identities whose voices are involved from the start. With accessibility in language, they have provided over 31 examples where they've had Spanish language programming, and they intend to have ASL interpreters at all 2025 events. Their marketing plan is great and will attract attention through a multi-channeled approach. They have included collaboration with partners and creating marketing partnerships with industry stakeholders, which will be very advantageous to their key constituents. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have too much more to add because the application really did go into good details, exactly what their goals are, who they're reaching out to, which I believe with this program, they reach just about everybody in the city. So I think they are being very inclusive to the community. So I just gave them a high score.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Wait, are you done, Ms. Lane? Sorry.
Yes, I didn't have too much to add. She pretty much went through.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. I would like
yes.
to invite any other.
Oh, I'm done.
It's a wrap. All
It's
right.
a wrap.
Invite any other panelists to chime in with any last comments for our last applicants.
I had a question which may or may not be possible to answer now. My question was about the creative music hubs that they're proposing. Wondering if those are going to begin with this funding, or if they already exist and are funded, and this is additional funding that is going towards those programs.
So just to be clear, that's something that you couldn't tell from the application, and that's something that would have clarified it more for you to be able to, score them highly or get more clarity. Just want to be clear about what the question that we're asking.
Yes, definitely. I found conflicting information. The text said one thing, but the documentation said something different.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or things that folks have?
Okay, seeing that there are no additional comments, we'll go ahead and finalize scores. Thank you so much, panelists, for being here. Remember, we're going to have a brief post-closed session just to get feedback on the process. We'll log out of this link, and then I want you to log back into using the same link you received earlier to join here. But otherwise, that's the end of our public session. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate your comments and feedback. And I'll see the rest of the panel in our wrap-up session here in a moment. Thank you.